Well, hello there. We got a lot of spooky stories to tell you today, so you better strap yourself in, get in a nice cozy blanket like this one, wrap yourself up because it's gonna get spooky around here, and you don't want to be caught with your feet sticking out of the blankets, okay? So, if you're here for this, if you are ready to listen to some stories, go ahead and give this video a like, and I will keep on telling you more stories. So today, like I said, it's spooky. It's a spooky version. These are all alleged ghost encounters or just weird stuff happenings. We have someone having a vision of something that happened around their house and confronting that ghost. We have a lot of short stories that are unexplainable, in my opinion. And we just have some other ones that I think you'll find interesting. So let's get to it. Next story. This is just one of my older personal experiences. I do not consider myself special in any way, nor a psychic or paranormal expert. If anything, I consider myself a skeptic. I have been into the paranormal since I was a wee girl and have done ghost hunting professionally, in as much as you can do so. LOL. About 27 years ago, in 1998, I lived in a flat in Bromley, Kent, the UK. The building was old and at the bottom of a road which has a sharp turn right outside the house. I'd lived there about 6 months or so when I saw a person walk past the living room door. I, of course, went to look if someone was in the flat, but found no one. Gradually, over the next month, I started seeing this more and more. It wasn't just a shadow or flicker, it was someone walking past doors or sometimes standing in the doorways. But every time I saw them and tried to look properly, they'd vanish. I figured, whatever. Either I was slowly going potty or had a ghostie. No big deal either way. LOL. Gradually, the figures started staying long enough for me to actually see them properly. A young man in his 20s, decent looking, except he was a little disheveled. His bomber jacket was torn, his hair a mess, and he looked distressed, worried, upset. The expression varied slightly. I saw him infrequently, always after around 11 p.m. at night, maybe once or twice every couple of weeks. One day, about 2.5 months of this later, I was walking from one room to another and looked up to find him standing right in front of me. Our eyes met and he looked shocked, startled, probably exactly how I felt. He opened his mouth and vanished. Now I started seeing him more often, almost every other night, and he was now trying to communicate with me. He would catch my eye, and when I looked at him properly, his mouth would start moving like he was trying to say something. His expression was frantic, gradually more frustrated and upset. I never saw him for more than maybe 2 or 3 seconds at a time. Then one day, after about 7 to 10 days of this, he appeared in front of me and pushed his arms at me. A look of concentration on his face, and suddenly I saw an image in my mind. A little red Ford, wrapped around a telephone pole, smoke coming off it. I blinked. He was gone. I wrote down what I'd seen. 3 days later, he showed up and did it again. This time I saw a bit of the license plate, just the first two letters. F5. I wrote it down. The next day on my lunch break, I popped into the local police station, which was right opposite where I worked. I asked a few questions and paid 10 quid for a print out of public info on an accident that happened pretty much outside the house I lived in. In 1994, a drunk driver in a red Ford Fiesta had been going too fast down the road and failed to make the turn. It had hit the telephone pole. The driver was dead on arrival when the cops got there, and the young woman in the passenger seat was badly injured but taken alive to the hospital from the scene. 2 days later, he showed up again. Just as he was raising his arms, I said as fast as I could, "Stop! You were driving a red Ford. You were drunk. You crashed into the telephone pole. You died. You're dead." But she lived. She went to the hospital. He looked astonished and disappeared. The next night he appeared again and I repeated the same thing. As I finished speaking, his whole face relaxed. He just looked so relieved. And then he vanished again. Nothing dramatic, no flash of light, not even a thumbs up. He was just gone. I never saw him again. Now that is a ghost story. Next story. My girlfriend recently moved into her own house with a friend of hers. One morning when they were at work, me and my friend were talking about how creepy the basement is, which contains things left behind by the previous tenants and her parents as they lived there right before her. There is a weird feeling of being watched, and we decided as a joke to put our ear up to the basement door to see if we could hear anything. And what we heard were footsteps sounding like they were at the bottom of the stairs. Because it's not the best area, we opened the door to make sure there wasn't an unwelcome guest living in the basement, as the house sat empty for a week or two other than what's in there, and no one was there. Fast forward about an hour, and we were talking about it in the living room. Basement is directly below the living room, and bottom of the stairs just about line up with where we were sitting. And I stand up to go grab my phone charger. I immediately sit back down because I felt something smack the floor under me from down in the basement, followed by a knock on the basement door. We decide to give it about 20 minutes before we search the basement. With no sign of anyone being down there uninvited, windows covered in cobwebs, so we knew no one had gone through them. There was, however, a cup that wasn't there before, which had something molded in the bottom quarter inch of it. He went to the corner where some of the said leftover items from previous tenants were, and found a black hat with a hand-painted pentagram on it. We decided we were going to leave it be and investigate some other time. Her friend ended up moving out about 4 days ago. The light switch at the top of the stairs to the basement has started turning itself on in the middle of the night. The other morning I heard my dad's voice call for me from the kitchen. He has never been to that house, and the kitchen connects directly to where the basement door is. The latest update I've gotten was from last night, where my girlfriend was getting ready for bed and tried to turn off the hallway light with the light switch by her bedroom. It wouldn't shut the light off, so she went to the other end of the hallway to turn it off. When she got to the other switch, her cat hissed at the switch by her room and took off running away from it, and the light switch flipped on its own. If anyone knows any ways to repel something like this, please let me know, because I would rather not have a ghost in her house. Well, yeah, when given the choice of having a ghost or not, I would rather not. But that's interesting that you can see live the switch flipping on and off. Crazy. Next story. Except I need some water. Hold on. Oh, oh. I got a piece of ice stuck in my gums, and that hurt. It started to freeze my gum. This is something that happened. Oh, gosh, did you hear that? This is something that happened back when I was working as a production assistant on a paranormal TV show. It happened during the filming of one of the paranormal specials that the show used to do on location. The concept of the shoot was simple. A famous psychic would visit ordinary people's homes and perform exorcisms on the spirits set to haunt them. Just to be clear, I'm not going to reveal who the psychic was, and I'd appreciate it if no one tries to guess or speculate. I have absolutely no intention of criticizing or slandering them. There was a reporter, the psychic, a cameraman, and a few crew members like me, but none of us, including myself, had any sort of spiritual sensitivity. The house we visited was in an old town somewhere in Massachusetts. If I remember correctly, my memory is a bit hazy, so I'm sorry if I got that wrong. It was a large, old house, and the request had come from the wife who lived there. Ever since they bought the house, she said strange things had been happening constantly inside, and bad luck had been plaguing their lives. The wife had very strong spiritual sensitivity. She said a young boy's ghost was wandering all throughout the house. Toys would start moving on their own, even when no one was nearby. They would hear crying coming from the bathroom and the sound of footsteps running rapidly across the second floor, day or night. She also said there had been accidents and spiritual disturbances happening frequently. Hearing all of this, the famous psychic began walking through the house, performing the exorcism. All the spirits dwelling in this house have been cleansed. You may now return to your normal life. You'll no longer be troubled by evil spirits. And with that, the psychic's part was done, and the shoot wrapped up without any issues. The reporter and the psychic headed back to the production van. The rest of the crew were cleaning up, and I was sitting alone in the dining kitchen. I happened to glance over and saw the wife standing in the corner of the kitchen, head down, wearing a deeply troubled expression. Something about it bothered me, so I asked, "Is everything all right?" She suddenly looked up at me and asked, with a serious, almost angry gaze, "Can that psychic really see spirits?" I stammered, well, they're quite famous in the field." Then she said, "Then why didn't they notice? That child's spirit has been clinging to my leg ever since that person stepped into this house." I looked down at her feet, but I couldn't see anything. Still, the thought crossed my mind, what if something was clinging to her legs, staring up at me from down there? Just imagining that sent a chill down my spine. Needless to say, that episode was scrapped and never aired. Oof, that one was rough. She's like, why can he really see spirits? Because he hasn't noticed this child clinging onto my leg this whole time. What child? Next story. Hi, I used to work at Windsor Castle, specifically in the Royal Library from the late 1980s until I left in 2003 after my third child was born. I wanted to stay home with my kids, and honestly, after everything I experienced there, I was kind of ready to be done. I wasn't anyone important, just a junior library assistant. Basically, I helped with cataloging, pulling materials, handling rare books, and that sort of thing. The Royal Library isn't open to the public, and everything in there is strictly protected and preserved. We worked in quiet rooms with controlled temperature and lighting, and had to follow a lot of rules. But here's the thing, Windsor is haunted as heck. Like, truly. And I didn't believe in that kind of thing when I started. The first thing I saw was Queen Elizabeth. The first thing I said I. The first thing I saw was Queen Elizabeth the First. Yes, really. It was around 1992, and I was working late in one of the archive rooms just shelving. I turned around and saw a woman in an elaborate gold gown, stiff white collar, red hair, just standing in the doorway. She didn't say anything, didn't move. I thought I was going mad. She looked too real to be a hallucination. Then she walked backwards into the wall and disappeared. I will never forget that image. It was the most bizarre, unnatural thing I've ever seen. There's a black dog that shows up around the west side of the library. No one talks about it officially, but we all knew. I saw it twice. It just appears, trots by, then vanishes when you turn to look at it properly. Someone told Someone once told me it's connected to a prince who died in childhood, but who knows? All I know is it gave me chills every time. Other weird stuff. Footsteps above when no one is upstairs. Pages turning in a book when no one is touching them. Cold spots, even in temperature controlled rooms. Whispers in Latin or French when no one's around. A man in old fashioned clothes staring from a locked archive room. The room was empty when we unlocked it. It wasn't constant, but it happened enough that I stopped questioning it. I've never talked about this publicly before, and honestly I'm a bit nervous even typing this out. We were always told to be discreet, and working in any royal residence comes with a sense of don't ask, don't tell when it comes to that kind of thing. But after 20 plus years, I just wanted to share it somewhere with people who might get it. I haven't been back since I left. I don't think I want to. Happy to answer questions, and thanks for reading. We have a question. Did Elizabeth react to you at all? What about the others? Was it like watching a person in a movie, or was it like a living, reacting person? I do think she was aware of me. She looked right at me, not through me. It wasn't like a movie or a dream. She looked completely solid, like a real person standing in the room. Not see-through, not floating, not ghostly. Just very pale, white powdered skin, red hair, dressed exactly like her portraits. I actually didn't think it was Queen Elizabeth I in the moment. I just thought, that's got to be some Tudor spirit or something. It was only afterward that the full weight of it hit me. The air felt freezing around her. Total chills. I'm not sure what a Tudor ghost is, but if it's something relevant to the story, I'll put it up here somewhere. Next story. This happened over a year ago, but earlier than 2 years. I got up to use the bathroom in the middle of the night, let's say 3 in the morning just as a ballpark. I do my business and start to head back to the room. Down the hallway in the deep black of night in that house, I saw someone walking towards me. It was about the same size as my boyfriend, so I figured they were going to the bathroom too. As we passed each other in the hallway though, he shoulder checked me hard. I thought to myself, what the freak is all that about? But they have anger management issues, so I figured he was just pissed off about something. And sure enough, they turned and went to the bathroom without even looking back at me. I get back to my room, open the door, enter with my head down, and instinctively turn around and slowly close the door behind me. I turn around, this time my eyes make their way to the bed, and I freeze. I've heard people use the expression frozen in place before, but I always felt like they were over exaggerating things, or just being dramatic. I can I can tell you with absolute certainty that you can be frozen in place with fear, whereas you cannot move or breathe or anything. That was the situation I found myself in. On the bed, with the nightstand light on and basking the whole room in soft glow, was the boyfriend. He was still snoring away, but was not alone. I don't know how to really describe what I was seeing. Best I can say is imagine if you were able to double a person in place where they were. Then you took the double and moved them just slightly off center, off where they were before, and made them blurry or buzzing like static electric. That's what I was seeing. Only whatever this thing was, it was staring right at me, and slowly, so very slowly, sinking down into the mattress. This whole ordeal took about 2 minutes. Not for 1 minute did I break eye contact with that thing as it sunk deeper and deeper into the mattress, until it was gone completely. The scream I had been trying to get out the whole time finally was able to escape my throat, which woke my boyfriend up with a startle. We both got dressed and made a beeline to the car, and I filled him in once we were somewhere away from that house. They, of course, didn't believe me, and I can't blame him. Had I not seen it, I wouldn't have believed it either. He did mention dreaming about quicksand before I woke up, though. I slept on the couch for 6 weeks before I was finally able to go back in and sleep in the bed. The strange part of it all, though, in retrospect, whatever the thing was, I don't think it wanted to hurt me or him, but it was absolutely vital that I saw it, and I remembered it. That was the feeling I left with. It needed to be witnessed at any cost. This one sounds like a little over dramatized, but hey, if they say they saw something, who are we to go against that? We weren't there, right? Next story. I was having a conversation with my niece. She told me that back in November of 2024, she began to see this figure which she described as a tall, approximately 6 foot, with a smile, a gold watch, and this thing appears once a month. This figure will appear in a corner somewhere or outside a window and smiles, then points at the watch, which is counting down. The time started at 1200 and is now at 6:25. The time's that's midnight. The time started at midnight and it's now 6:25. It appears to her once a month and not seen it this month. She's not sure why she's getting it and is worried she's crazy. Her mom is worried that she's schizophrenic, but I lean on the spiritual side of life and do not think this is a mental illness. She is also completely normal, does not hear things that aren't there, and does not see things besides this. She's asked her friends if they see that when it appears, but nobody else does. I've asked her in-depth questions in an attempt to find out more, like what time, date, when, and where she has this experience, and hopes she's keeping track of it when that's happening, but she hasn't. I informed her to do this. I understand that this may not be what I think it is, and could be a mental thing, but I also don't want her to think she's crazy, and from the interactions I've had with her, I just don't believe she is. If anybody has any idea or has experienced something similar, please let me know. I personally haven't, but if you have, go ahead and put that down below and let us know, because this is definitely weird. Somebody said, okay, but like a 6 foot tall dude with a countdown watch smiled at me once a month, I'd be sleeping in a salt circle wearing 3 crucifixes and a NASA helmet. Your niece might be the main character in a horror movie and nobody told her yet. That's pretty funny, but he's got a point. Next story. I was home alone at 17 in what would be considered an older house in my country. Downstairs was 130 years old, second floor added 40 years later. The house had a veranda that led to the front door with bay windows facing it from a family room looking out. As a family, we usually used the lounge opposite it, but this family room was often largely unused except if my folks were holding parties. I never liked being in there and always felt like I was being watched. I had a few other unusual experiences in the same house, never malevolent, but we were not the only occupants. Anyways, middle of winter, not that late, maybe 5:45 at night and the sun setting, and I was running out of the house to drive to swim training, locking the front door behind me. But as I was running off the steps off the veranda down the drive, I thought I heard the phone ringing. I ran back, and as I stepped up to the veranda, I looked out the window of the family room and getting to the front door, and staring out at me was an Edwardian clothed male. What's an Edwardian? Pale, slightly transparent, with a long mustache looking directly at me. I noped back out of there as fast as my legs could carry me. A few years later, Mom, who was a constant renovator, converted our only downstairs bedroom into a study, and in doing so uncovered a hidden fireplace. Fireplace was restored, but tucked up inside the chimney were a lot of old postcards and photographs dating back to 1917, including a ship's menu. Cut to Mom showing me these photographs, and who should be there but the old Edwardian guy. Turned out he was a family doctor from the 1890s who owned the house back in the day, and the room I always felt uncomfortable in, even though we had some great parties there, was where he used to consult patients. I don't know what an Edwardian guy is, but maybe I can put a picture here of it. Next story. This happened in my late 30s. My husband, kids, and I were in the living room just hanging out, watching TV, and talking. I was sitting on the sofa and something, I can't remember what, fell off, so I went to pick it up. But as soon as I bent over, my foot touched the ground and my hand was on the object. All three things were done at exactly the same time. I was no longer in my living room or myself. I was stepping off of a street curb, basically in the same position in what looked like a big city in the 20s or 30s. I looked down at myself, and from what I saw, I must have been a man because I had on a suit with a long coat and expensive shoes and a hat. I'll have to dig up my journal because I wrote it all down, but I think I remember seeing this person's reflection in the water by the curb or a car's window. It's been a while. It only lasted a few seconds, maybe longer. It feels like what broke the connection, or whatever the heck it was when I stood up, I was back in my house. It was so vivid and detailed. I could hear everything, and it felt like I was there. I can still see it now, like it's a memory of a place that I've been. It felt so real, absolutely impossible, and makes no sense, but this is one of the creepiest things I've ever experienced. Sounds like they crossed into some sort of different dimension there, and we're seeing something another person was seeing back then. Next story. I woke up one night shortly after we moved into a new house, and we saw floating, faintly glowing orbs in the hallway across from my bed. I sat up and rubbed my eyes, but they were still there. I stared at them for a little bit and then ran downstairs and slept on the couch for a few weeks. In the same house, I laid down to go to bed, and as soon as I closed my eyes, I heard and felt someone whisper my name in my ear. I lived in a house where things would move and doors would open and close on their own. It was just me and one other person in the house. One morning, I was woken up by their bedroom door slamming. Then they texted me and asked if I threw the cat in their room and slammed their door. One night, I watched something slide off my countertop and fall to the floor. It had been in the same spot for weeks, inches away from the edge with no problem, and it's been there since I put it back. LOL. I've had one other distant instance of things getting thrown at my current place. Almost everything on my entertainment table fell to the floor randomly. My back was turned that time, so I didn't see what happened. I have more stories, but those are some of the more exciting ones. LOL. I also have a ghost photo if you're interested. Definitely interested. Put that up here. Next story. I'm trying to find it, hold on. One night, when I was 11, I woke up to the sound of whispering, not in my room, but inside my pillow, like voices inside the freaking stuffing. I sat up, freaked out, turned on my lamp, and it stopped. When I put my head back down, it started again, like a full-on staticky whisper war under my skull. I threw the pillow across the room, obviously, and slept with my head on a hoodie. Never heard it again. To this day, I don't know if it was a dream, a ghost, or some off-brand radio tower trying to vibe check me. But yeah, that pillow can rot in the void. That's so weird. My best guess is that this was a dream. Next story. A few months ago, I drove to Walmart. I was there for less than 10 minutes. When I got back to my car, I opened the door and found the seat fully pushed up front. It was touching the wheel. The headrest was also fully lifted. No other seat was touched, and the car was locked, and there was no one around. I stood there confused for like 5 minutes before I got back in. Did anyone break in and just move things for no reason, or do you just not remember doing it? That's definitely weird. That's gonna be it for our ghost stories today. I hope this makes for a nice, spooky, cozy storytelling video. If you're wondering why I haven't moved much, it's because look at this. I'm so cozy right now, and reading these stories is just perfect. Anyways, if you like this type of video where I tell stories in a cozy vibe, let me know and I'll keep on telling them. But until then, I will see you in the next story. Bye.